Welcome to the Unabridged podcast. I'm Ashley.
And this is Jen.
Join us for bookish episodes and check out our website, unabridgedpod.com, where you can find lots of new bookish content to grow your TBR.
Sign up for our newsletter to find out more about online book discussions and upcoming events. Find us on Patreon for extra unabridged content. Join us on Instagram and Facebook at unabridgedpod and message us there or see our website to get plugged into the Unabridged community. You want opinions about books? We've got them.
Hi, and welcome to Unabridged. This is episode 288. Today we're discussing Chloe Liese's Two Wrongs Make a Right. This is our February 2025 book club pick. Before we get started today, I just want to remind you that you can support us by going to patreon.com/unabridgedpod. There is a long back catalog of things that we've recorded and video clips and things like that, resources that are available. And then we also, if you would prefer to just shop for things that we have, there is a shop tab and you can click on there and we have discussion guides and book club guides and things like that that are available for purchase. And we appreciate your support so much. Before we get into our book club discussion today, we are going to do our bookish check-in. Jen, what are you reading?
So I have just started listening to Sierra Greer's Annie Bot, thanks to Libro FM's ALC program. This one came out last year, and I'm just a couple chapters in, but I am captivated already. So Annie Bot is a robot who is designed to cuddle. And yes, that is a euphemism. And so she is supposed to be the perfect girlfriend for Doug, who purchased her. And at first she was an Abigail, which meant her job was to clean for him and to keep up the house. And then he switched her to this other mode where she is designed to be his perfect girlfriend. And then at some point, he turned on autodidact mode, which means that she has the capacity to learn. And the story is told from Annie's point of view. So in the first chapter, there's a lot of just establishing the situation. But pretty early, Doug receives a visit from his best friend who wants him to be his best man. And when they invite him in, he had no idea that Doug had Annie Bot. And it becomes clear that he purchased her after his wife left him. And that Annie was created after his ex-wife. So she looks just like his ex-wife, except he just changed her skin color. And yeah, it was clearly like a coping mechanism. So we get this insight into Doug right away. And Annie is really interesting because she definitely has programming. So there are all of these things. She is supposed to want to do everything that Doug wants her to do. She's supposed to want to please him. She's very attuned to what makes him angry or upset. And in her programming tells her to always do the things that will make him happier. But even in that first chapter, she makes some decisions that are veering a little bit away from what he might want. And some of them are ethical decisions that would be difficult for humans to have to make. And her programming doesn't have an answer for them. So she's trying to navigate these nuances of human interaction, which she hasn't had to do before because Doug and her technician are the only two people she's ever interacted with. So I'm always intrigued by sci-fi stories that are questioning what it means to be human and what it means to have sentience. And so I am already really intrigued by this one. So that is Sierra Greer's Annie Bot.
Oh, Jen, that actually sounds really interesting. And it makes me realize I have not read that many things that have a robot, certainly not where the robot is the main character, is like telling the story, but even just exploring that. I haven't read many of those recently, and I'm like, the world is changing, and It's interesting to consider those things in light of the last few years and some of the advances with AI. So yeah, that sounds really captivating.
Well, I will say, if you are interested in that, my favorite ever is Kazuo Ishiguro's Clara and the Sun.
Oh.
Which is amazing, and it's going to be adapted. I can't remember if it's this year. Anyway, they're working on an adaptation, and it is absolutely brilliant.
Oh, awesome. I'll have to check that out.
So I would highly recommend that.
Nice.
So what are you reading?
One of the ones I'm reading right now is Alyssa Cole's How to Catch a Queen. So I haven't read her romances, and I found this one on my Kindle, and I was like, oh, yes, I'm finally going to start one of these series. So this is book 1 in the Runaway Royals series. And in the beginning, there's a prince who is about to become king. He very much does not want to be king. Sanyu is his name. He does not want to be king. He is actually trying to flee the entire situation. And then his father, who he'd known would die, dies. And so then that propels him forward into this reluctant role as a king. Well, he needs a queen. And so immediately the advisory board gathers and they get an arranged marriage to Shanti, and she comes to marry him. But we discover pretty quickly that he is the king of Nyaza, and we discover pretty quickly that he saw this with his father, that the tradition is that there is like a trial period for the queens, and only a quote unquote true queen would be able to go beyond this trial period. And the trial period is only 4 months. And so when Shanti marries Sanyu, they meet, and then very quickly the time is passing. And so he's in mourning over the loss of his father. He's very reluctant to take on the role of king, and he has also never seen a lasting romantic relationship because his father never found his true queen, and because of that he had many trial queens, none of whom lived up to this, and therefore Sanyu saw all these women come and go throughout his childhood up till this moment. And so we see him inheriting a kingdom that was set up by his father, who he really revered, but also his father very much ruled with an iron fist. His father was a warrior. He really established the community and kingdom after volatility. And so because of that, a lot of what Sanyu sees as being royal or sees as being the right way to rule is like in conflict with his personality, with his beliefs about what is ethical and right. And then also there is this very powerful advisory board, and it is like we see right away that Sanyu does not have a whole lot of control, and that very much there's one advisor specifically, but in general that the advisors have a lot of sway over what happens in the kingdom, all the more exacerbated by the fact that Sanyu both does not want to rule and also that he is mourning the loss of his father, and then, has all these life changes that he has not yet adjusted to. And Shanti had this goal to be a queen. Like that was her goal. That was her life ambition. And her family made a lot of sacrifices in order for this to happen. So she just kind of falls upon this particular, like she was on like royalmatch.com or something like that. And she had done all the right things to be eligible for royalty, but then this opportunity just kind of fell upon her. And so she has the ambition to be a queen and to have power and influence and to do important things. But she discovers very quickly that Sanyu's perspective is that she's not involved at all. And so when she gets there, she's thinking that she's going to take care of the regime, that she's going to be a part of it. She vows right away to protect and serve him, and he's kind of like, what? Like, you don't protect me. Queens aren't here to protect. And so it's just these two very different cultural understandings of their roles that are at odds. And so pretty quickly, 3 months have already passed, and Sanyu has hardly seen Shanti. And so I'm at the point now, I'm still early on in the book, where she doesn't have much time left in her trial, and they have hardly interacted with each other, but the couple of times that she has been involved, she's had a lot of power and sway, and it's clear that he needs someone to help him stand up to these advisors, make some new pathways for their community, so all that. So you see that stuff happening. So, I'm really interested. I'm really enjoying it. I love Alyssa Cole, and I have been wanting to try one of her romance series. So again, this is Alyssa Cole's How to Catch a Queen.
I love that series. I just love Alyssa Cole. I think she's so good at taking these unusual premises and just spinning them out in the best way.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens. And I think both of the main characters are intriguing. So, well, today we are going to say on that, I guess that wasn't a romance kick here since I just talked about a romance book, but we're going to talk about our February book club pick, which is Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Liese. This is the first I have read of Chloe Liese. I know, Jen, you have read several of hers.
All of them.
All of them. There
I
you
love
go.
her.
So I've been meaning to try hers, and I'm so glad to talk about this one today, but this is the first one for me. I'm going to start with a synopsis, and then we will discuss. This is the publisher's synopsis. Opposites become allies to fool their matchmaking friends in this swoony reimagining of Shakespeare's beloved comedy, Much Ado About Nothing. Jamie Westenberg and B. Wilmot have nothing in common except a meat disaster and the mutual understanding that they couldn't be more wrong for each other. But when the people closest to them play Cupid and trick them into going on a date, Jamie and B realize they have something in common after all, an undeniable need for revenge. Soon their plan is in place. Fake date obnoxiously and convince the meddlers they're madly in love. Then break up spectacularly and dash everyone's hopes, putting an end to the matchmaking madness once and for all. So, yes, lots of reimagining of Shakespeare here and lots of shenanigans. Jen, what's your overall impression of this one?
So I've read this one before, and I love it. I just think the thing I always like about Lisa's work is something she articulates really explicitly at the beginning of this one, which is that people have different lives and that there are people who, well, I'm just going to read this quote. She says, this story features characters with human realities who I believe deserve to be seen more prominently in romance through positive, authentic representation. As a neurodivergent person with frequently invisible chronic conditions, I am passionate about writing feel-good romances, affirming my belief that every one of us is worthy and capable of happily ever after if that's what our hearts desire. And I just think she is consistent in setting up romances that do that. So I think her romances are just as swoony and unputdownable as anyone else's, and yet that intention shines through, and I just really love it. So rereading this was such a treat. I love the way she takes Benedict and Beatrice from the original story and spins them out. I love Much Ado About Nothing. And I think that subplot, I mean, they're secondary characters, but they're my favorite part of that, of that show, that play for sure. And so I love seeing the way she takes that and really recasts it in this modern way. So yeah, overall impression, absolutely loved it. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was super fun. I loved the laugh out loud components of it. I think that she does a really great job of creating compassion for the characters and helping us love them, but also laugh with them about all the absurd things that happen. And I think we see a lot of that. And I feel like that's a hard thing to balance, but she both takes them very seriously and also is playful about their interactions. And, you know, like where the description said the meat disaster, I think there's a lot of that kind of thing where you think it's going to go one way and it goes in a totally different direction. And it's really fun. Overall, I absolutely loved it for the reasons you said, Jen. I think that the crafting of each of them as complex characters is something that really stands out. So what's one specific thing that worked for you?
I think the thing that I noticed a lot this time around was the banter between Dee and Jamie, also known as West. And I think they're both so smart in very distinctive ways. And so I think that anytime there's an opportunity for banter, when they're first getting to know each other for real in their text message chain where they don't know who they're actually talking to, I think they're so clever. And you can see how they would start falling for each other's brains and distinctive personality. And then that banter continues. Like you were talking about the meat disaster. Even within that, they're both so funny. And so I think they're very quick-witted, and that is consistent with, again, with Much Ado About Nothing, with Benedict and Beatrice, who are both total smart Alex. And so I loved seeing that part of the play recast here. So that is, I think, my favorite thing is just the banter, which she's great at writing dialogue. I think it's such a strength. How about you? What's something that worked for you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the banter. And I did think that was a significant carryover. That's something that works really well in Shakespeare's play, and you definitely see it here. So yeah, I agree about that. Something that really works for me is the way that we see both Jamie and Bea come to show their care for each other through helping each other stretch and do awesome things. And I think I really love that because I think we don't want to go into relationships to change people. And that's not what's happening here. But I think that there is this care for the other. And in that care, they both are doing these things that make the other better. And I really love that. Like, I just felt like it's what I want to believe for romances. It is a refreshing depiction of particularly the male protagonist who, instead of being this broody, grumpy guy, is who like we swoon over, but is kind of terrible. Instead, he is a little bit closed off. He's a little bit stuffy is the word that comes to my mind. But at the same time, he has this really generous, kind, caring heart. And even the missteps that he takes, and same for B, like the missteps are still done in an act of compassion and care for the other. And so like, I just loved that. I thought that it was a really healthy and beautiful relationship that shows two complicated people who are fully human, who also want what is best for the person that they're coming to love. And I just think that we don't often, I mean, not never, but I think there are a lot of romances that do not depict that and show this like really healthy and what I feel would be very sustainable relationship dynamic. And I love that. I like seeing that in a book.
I agree. And I think because you have that contrast with B's twin sister Jules and Jean-Claude, I think that stands out even more because that is clearly such a dysfunctional relationship. I thought that was really brilliant the way she developed that as well, because B doesn't like Jean-Claude from the beginning, but it's not, his abuse is not so on the surface that you think that someone should have stopped it earlier. It's so insidious. And I think that's a really realistic portrayal of that. And so then to have the two couples be so different, even though most people probably would think Jules and Jean-Claude were kind of aspirational, I think that works really well.
Yes, I completely agree. And absolutely that idea that like what we see on the surface is very different than the reality below. In both cases, right? For them, it's in a positive, like their reality is so much richer and fuller than what people might see in this like clumsy meat disaster situation, you know? But then for Jules and Jean-Claude, it is very much like what people are seeing. B can perceive that something is wrong. And part of it is her own history, right? And her former relationship with Todd, who I just thought that whole layer was really important. And also, I loved the way that Liese explored it and just showed how people get sucked into those kinds of things. And then there's shame and self-judgment and all this. Even to her sister, she did not reveal how horrible everything was because it is hard to admit because it makes you feel that you've been duped. And so I think we really see that with Jules also, that we like see her experiencing a lot of what B had already experienced with a toxic relationship, which is you're so cut off and isolated. And then also by the time you see how bad it really is, you feel all these terrible self-judgments that, you know, we shouldn't feel because it's not someone's fault, because exactly what you said. I mean, it's not someone's fault that we get sucked into. He's very charismatic. We see all the charm, you know, that he offers. And we see the way that people like Jamie have made concessions for him and for the parts of him that you just tolerate until it becomes apparent that he's a really toxic person. Yeah, I was very curious to see more of that. And then I thought maybe that was another book. So yes, I was like, oh, maybe I need to read about this elsewhere, because I thought this story is not over yet. So.
Yeah. Well, so they're the three sisters. So book 2 is out. Book 3 is coming out in 2025. Oh, okay. So I can't remember what month, but yeah. So we will eventually get all 3 sister stories.
Nice.
Which is fun.
That is.
I did want to say one more thing, and I know this is cheating, but I also loved, so I like a fake dating premise, but I think sometimes they go on too long. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Liese's sense of when that needed to end in the story was exactly right. Because just as I was getting impatient with their inability to say anything to each other about their true feelings, that was the moment that they take a step forward. And so I thought she used it just in the right way to draw us in, but didn't push it so far.
Yes, I agree, because I get fed up with that too. And it's same that I like the enemies to lovers and the fake dating, like those are two tropes that generally work well for me in romance, but absolutely sometimes I'm like, just say the thing, come on. But I felt like the insecurity on both sides was so well developed that it was believable that it would take them time to trust that the other person wanted to take the next step, even though we as readers can see, of course, they mean, everything's authentic. We can see that. But I believed, that hesitation at first. Jen, what is a quote that you wanted to share?
So I'm going to share one. This is right after B tells Jamie that she is on the spectrum. And she says, "It means a lot that you didn't act like you see me differently now." He tucks a strand of hair behind my ear as the wind whips it across my face. "I don't see you differently. I see you better. My heart leaps and clatters against my ribs." That's a nice way to put it. And I thought that was just perfect. And I love their friend group and the way I think there's such a sense of acceptance and grace in that whole friend group. And I felt like this was a part of it because they're all so generous with anything that's revealed from someone else. That, you see B, she also has this when she's talking about being pansexual and Jules is bisexual. And among their friend group, there's just this sense of acceptance. And so she builds this up as something that could potentially be a relationship ender. And Jamie acts in exactly the right way. So I think these moments that Jean-Claude certainly reacts very poorly. Again, you see the contrast there. You see how someone could react to like Jules's identity as a bisexual woman. And so to see Jamie just be so open and accepting and to fit into that friend group really beautifully. I really love that facet of the novel.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was such a beautiful moment. And I thought it was representative of a lot of different moments in the book, all of which speak to this idea of loving ourselves and each other as whole people who are authentic and real and complicated, and how beautiful that can be.
What's your quotation, Ashley?
Yeah, mine is along the same vein, but kind of looking at the other end of it. And it's where B and Jamie are preparing to go to the birthday party with his family. And it's just that there's so much tension for him, that he feels so much judgment. And we see that play out, right? I mean, we see the way that his family berates him, how they don't value him in the way that B sees that they should. But before they go, she quotes her mom, who always has said to her, "Anyone who can't love you for you doesn't deserve your heart." And I think that is a great motto. I think it is a beautiful thing to teach your child. I love that B grows up thinking that. And then exactly what you shared, Jen, that even with that beautiful relationship with her family, she's still scared. It's still scary to admit these truths. But she has this framing that helps her know that she can trust to take these steps. Whereas Jamie does not have that support on his side. And we do see the tension. And so I just think that it's beautiful to hear her say that and hear her find a way to stand with him in a situation where they cannot change these dynamics, but they can support each other through them. And so I think it's really lovely.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think the contrast in their families is so powerful. I love the moment when she asks if she should wear the wrap to cover up her tattoos. And he just rejects the idea that she should have to cover up any part of herself, even though he knows how his family, and particularly his father, are going to react. But he just is so willing to accept her. And I think that's all. Yeah, I think that we're on the same theme here for sure. That just that idea of acceptance and of loving people for their whole selves, and is really beautiful. And the more that they come to understand each other, flaws and all, and some things that aren't flaws, but flaws and all, the more they love each other.
Yeah, exactly. We always share a pairing. So these are just books that if you enjoyed this one, this is another book we think you might enjoy. Jen, what's your pairing?
So I really debated about this. I chose Sonali Dev's Austen retellings, but particularly Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, which we did cover on the podcast a few seasons ago. And I did this for two reasons. One is it is another retelling of a classic, but it's also an enemies to lovers trope. Now, it's very, very different, but Deb has this series of 4 Austen retellings, each focused on a different book. This first one, of course, is focused on Pride and Prejudice. And it does a gender swap. So the Darcy character is the woman, in this case, who is part of the Deb family. And she is Trisha Raj is her name. And she is a surgeon who is very exacting. She's part of this very wealthy family. And she eventually comes to meet an up-and-coming chef, DJ Kane. He is going to prepare and serve food at one of her family's functions. And this is definitely a hate at first sight. Not meet cute, meet whatever. Maybe it's another meat disaster. But you see the way that despite their instant animosity, they are also drawn to each other. And I really like Deb's touch with, again, I think the enemies to lovers trope is one of my favorites, but it can go very wrong very quickly if one of the people is too horrible. And because you see both of their points of view, you understand the background that has led them to be who they are and to sometimes react in ways that are less than ideal. And so I love retellings because I think the ones that do the best job are ones that can take the truth of the original work and set it in any time and place. And I think that both Liese and Deb are able to do that. So this one is Sonali Deb's Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors. That's the first in the series of 4. It is my favorite of the 4, I think. But yeah, I would highly recommend that.
Nice. I love that one.
Yeah, it's so good. How about you, Ashley? What are you recommending?
I felt torn because I did not go with a retelling, and so this one is not a retelling, sorry, but I did think of it a lot throughout this book, and so I did want to share it because I think that in a lot of ways it is a great pairing. And this is Talia Hibbert's Act Your Age, Eve Brown. If you are a longtime listener, you know that I love the Brown sisters. There are 3 of these. This is book 3. I think the reason that it kept coming to my mind is, like you were saying about Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, Jen, that it is enemies to lovers. It is very much where the beginning is disastrous. And yet it's these really complex characters who have good reasons. I think your point was such a good one about if the one character or both of the characters, if they're too terrible, then you really have trouble rooting for them. Or again, something I've started to really see in romances is just the ways that sometimes we're upholding archetypes who in real life are not good people. I mean, they're not, they're fun to read romance books about, but then they are not the kind of people who are going to take care of you. So I just think I like seeing these ones where people are complicated, they are authentic people, and yet they have good intentions. They are good about their wanting to care for their partner. So this one has Eve and Jacob. And at the beginning, Eve is trying to get her life together. She feels like her sisters already have everything figured out and that she is just completely dysfunctional. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to get it together. I'm going to go get a job. She's close to her family. Her family is comfortable. So she doesn't have this urgent need to get everything together. And yet her parents are kind of like, we're going to cut you off. You have got to start figuring out how to provide for yourself. And so because of that, she's like, uh-oh, I've got to do something. And so she randomly stops at a bed and breakfast where they say that they're hiring. And she meets Jacob, who runs the bed and breakfast. And she walks in, and he's very put together and likes to have everything very tidy and in control. And so she comes in, and she is not those things. And immediately he's like, absolutely not. And then as she's storming out and leaving, she hits him with her car in the parking lot. He's fine, but the whole thing is disastrous, and he winds up with a broken arm. So because of that, she starts helping out at the bed and breakfast, despite the fact that, of course, he had said absolutely not. But she does feel bad that this thing happened, and so, one thing leads to another, and she winds up helping out there. It's also in the middle of nowhere, so she also has to stay at the bed and breakfast. And so they get to know each other, and it is just lovely. And I think I like it so much because, and why it really resonated with Liese's book, is because in it, and I think Talia Hibbert does this in every book I've read of hers. Like, she looks at invisible illnesses. She looks at neurodivergence. She looks at all the different things that make people unique and also that can make their lives complicated at times. And she shows the way that those traits can be celebrated and valued and loved. And we absolutely see that with both Eve and Jacob in this book. And I think that's just what I love, is how sometimes those, the opposites attract. Like, sometimes the characters and the people who are so different from us really do help us shine and see things about ourselves that we did not see. And for sure that happens with Eve, who is fun and very cheerful and all those things. And then Jacob is, he is not, I was criticizing all the grumpy guys. He is grumpy, but not a bad person. He is not hurtful toward her or anything, but he is very curmudgeonly in the beginning. And a lot of that is because he does not have the supports he needs in place. And therefore the only way that he has found to have some success with his bed and breakfast is to run this like very tight, very strict setup that is making it hard for him to relax. So I just love all of that. I think it is a great story, and I love all the Brown Sisters books, but that is the one I enjoy the most. And so again, that's Talia Hibbert's Act Your Age, Eve Brown. And I definitely think if you like this one, that there's a lot of complementary components.
Yeah, I think that's such a great pairing. I love that series too. Hibbert is another one of those authors who just, I love everything she writes.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. And she has a lot of laugh out loud moments and scenes also, which I thought that was true for Two Wrongs Make It Right. Just like laugh out loud funny, That's hard to do sometimes. Again, to like show the serious side, but also be playful. And I think we see that.
I did just want to note, and you all have probably picked this up, that if you're doing the reading challenge, this one actually fulfills 3 categories. So a book about someone with neurodivergence, romance featuring a character with a disability, and retelling from a secondary character's perspective. So you can knock off several categories if you've read along with us.
Awesome. To wrap up this discussion, we will share our bookish hearts. Jen, how many bookish hearts?
It was 5 for me. Yeah, I loved rereading this one. It definitely lived up to the first reading. How about you?
I think I'd go with 4.5. I really loved it. I continue to have a little bit of resistance to romances recently, but I really loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
Well, to end today, we are going to share our unabridged favorites. Jen, what's your favorite?
So Kirk and I are constantly cycling through streaming services, and we recently resubscribed to Apple TV and started watching Slow Horses, which has been so much fun. It stars Gary Oldman, who is an MI5 agent who is in charge of a group of misfits. They are members of MI5 who have done something really wrong and so can't be with the rest of the agents. And so they're put in this place called Slough House, which is, they're just sort of given these strange jobs that nobody else wants to do. And they are called, because Slough House sounds like slow horses. And so it is funny, and each season has 6 episodes. They're about 40 to 45 minutes each. Moves very quickly, and they are just so much fun. And Gary Oldman is having a blast playing this unshowered, farting, really, really gross guy who is nevertheless brilliant, was this brilliant agent during the Cold War, and still has all of this knowledge, but is constantly berating these agents who are under his care. So he takes care of them, but he makes them feel really bad about the mistakes that they made. Anyway, there's a lot of great personality work, a lot of great character development. And it is based on a book series I have not read, but you can tell just from the character work, you can see the seeds of that. So anyway, I'm loving it. That is Slow Horses on Apple TV Plus. What about you, Ashley? Oh, yeah, it is really fun. I think you would like it.
Yeah. It's funny you said that about shuffling through the subscription services, because it's like, we don't have that one right now.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what to keep and what to watch, because I find it that no matter what, I always go back to Bob's Burgers. So it's like not reliable for me to like subscribe to something new, because I might not make it past the Bob's Burgers temptation. So
What's one of your favorites, Ashley?
I think amid the winter here, I wanted to share about taking time to do fire pits. That's just a lot of fun. And I always feel we just have a little fire pit outside. And I always feel a little resistance to like get one started. And then whenever we do, it's really fun. So I think while it's still dark pretty early and before we get to spring, I just wanted to share that is a favorite for me. It's something that we did a few times over break. And it's something that we will do a few more times this winter. And it is something that, like, it doesn't take much. It's easy to get a little bit of wood and start a little fire and just enjoy being outside. But I forget how much fun it is. My kids always want to do s'mores. So if you're thinking about doing this with a family, I highly recommend having a treat component as well. But we'll just get some yard games out and do that. And it's a lot of fun and just a nice winter activity because, you can start them early. You could do it before dinner. It is something that seems both harder than it actually is. And also it's a very simple thing, but a fun thing to do in wintertime.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Yeah.
I always forget about these unabridged favorites, and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? But I think that's been a fun one. Well, thank you so much for listening today to our discussion of Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Liese. Let us know if you read along. Let us know what you thought about it. If you have read other books by Liese, we'd love to hear your thoughts about those as well. You can always find us on Instagram at unabridgedpod. Thanks so much for listening.
Do you have comments or opinions about what you heard today? We'd love to hear them. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at unabridgedpod or on the web at unabridgedpod.com for ways to support us. To get more involved, you can sign up for our newsletter, join a buddy read, or become an ambassador. Thanks for listening to Unabridged.